Criminal pigs, eh?
Yeah.
Great title.
I know. I found this story and I was like, fucking hell.
Gonna have to do that shit.
Yeah, and I messaged you, didn't I? I was like, you have to promise not to get angry at this episode because um
I'll try.
I don't, yeah.
Is it gonna? Oh God, it's gonna make me angry about animals, though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, that's why I've already said to you, don't get angry.
Yeah, but my anger about the mistreatment of animals and the mistreatment of humans, they're two different kind of rages.
I know they are. That's why I said I don't message you on
Right.
any other episode, but I knew this one was gonna incite pure rage, uncontrolled
Right.
rage. So I preemptively said, please don't kick off at this one.
Please don't kick off too much. All
We'll
right.
lose all of our listeners.
I will control myself.
All right. Okay. Anyways, though,
Yeah.
I have just been through starting from the latest episode down, trying to put in timestamps so that if people want to listen to the episode but don't want to listen to our utter bullshit at the beginning, they can
Uh-huh.
just fast forward it. So I've just spent a majority of the morning doing that and then realised there's a advert in some of them, which is going to add 1 minute 24 seconds on to each episode, and
Damn it.
the timestamps are probably all wrong.
Oh, so you're gonna have to go back and redo them all. Now, how
Yeah.
do you work out like where it is? Do you literally are you
I'm
literally
listening.
oh you are.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm skipping it because I hate it.
Yeah. Obviously.
I'm skipping it until I'm like, right, this is where the episode starts. And then I
Yeah.
put in the little timer at the beginning of the
Giving
description.
giving people the option. Why the hell not?
Mm-hmm.
We're not for everyone.
No, and I wish as well because I've stayed it here, and I'll say it again. I hate chat at the beginning of a podcast. I hate it. So if I do want to listen to an episode and there's chat, I'm driving, so I don't want to have to keep pressing fast forward, fast forward, fast forward. Tell
Yeah.
me when it's going to start, and I'll just skip to that.
Yeah. Fair
So
enough.
that's why I was doing it.
Well, it's a work in progress. We find
Yeah,
these things as we go and
we're
yeah,
professionals, you
we're
know.
professionals. Yeah, exactly. It's what we do.
That's what we do. Yeah, cool.
All right. I'm scared to chat now.
I know. I didn't know how to start this episode. Oh, I haven't got random blam. Damn it!
Oh, I have.
Random blam. Let's go.
Right. Well, this random blam is about dogs because I'm having a shit time at work lately because it's winter and I work outside, so I'm freezing. And Claire phoned me the other night and I was on my way back from work. I was driving back from flipping Birmingham. So I had like a 4 hour drive. So I was driving along and she said, "Oh, how was work?" And I went, "Oh, it was freezing. I was in the pitch black and I'm going to be driving into the early hours of the morning. But it was actually a really good day." And she went, "Oh, how come?" And I said, "I saw four dogs." And she was like, "Oh, okay, of course." So if I see a dog and I get to pet a dog, that's a good
It's a
day
good
for
day.
me. Yeah, it's a good day. So my blam is about dogs. So it's just some facts about dogs that I just think dogs are amazing. So their sense of smell is at least 40 times better than ours. I don't think my sense of smell is particularly good at all, unless it's a horrible smell, and then I seem to like
Yeah.
smell it a mile away.
Yeah.
Their noses can smell medical problems. They can smell and breathe at the same time, which I was like, wow, because I can't.
No.
No, I don't know. Maybe I can.
Just spend 5 minutes in silence while we both try.
Yeah. They're incredible swimmers, although Puppy is not. Um, some breeds are so fast that they can even beat a cheetah in a race.
Oh, not Caesar. Oh,
No,
he tries. He tries his hardest, but he's a slow runner, bless him.
Yeah, I mean, I do see a lot of similarities between Caesar and your daughter.
Yeah.
You've just had that
Bless her.
realization. You're like,
Yeah.
actually,
She's
I know.
dopey.
We love both of them. Dogs only sweat through their paws. Dogs are, this was actually like blew my mind a little bit. So dogs are actually left or right pawed, like we're right or left handed.
Really?
Yeah. And I would
Because
like
they're
to
like,
point out that my dog Puppy is left pawed
because she don't have no right
because she
paw.
doesn't have a right paw. Yeah, she's disabled baby. Yeah, so they either have a preference with their right or left paw.
To do what though?
Do what the fuck they want.
Oh.
Maybe it's like when they give paw. Maybe it's like they have a dominant paw, so when they start walking, they always put that one
Maybe.
forward
If
first.
we say paw to Caesar, he's so excited that he just whacks both of them at you.
Yeah.
Like, get up! Have everything! All four legs straight at you.
All four of them, yeah. They have super sensitive hearing and they have 18 muscles just to control their ears.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah.
But then once they're flapped back, they can't flap them back forward without shaking their head.
Yeah.
They can't just like
the 18 muscles
muscle.
don't go that way. They just
No.
go that way and that way.
No.
Or you're
All
like,
right.
what's that noise? And their ears go, yeah.
Yeah. Except for when I'm shouting and calling Caesar and his ear muscles do nothing.
Yeah. They're completely deaf then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I tried to, in the brief moment while you was telling me your blam, I tried to find some random blams about animals.
Yeah.
And I found that the oldest living land animal on Earth is Jonathan. And Jonathan is a tortoise.
I know Jonathan.
And he's 192 years old.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
190. I bet in Jonathan's head, I bet he's like looking around at people thinking,
gosh, the world has changed.
Such a bunch of dicks. Honestly.
Youngsters these days.
You're not learning.
Yeah. A group of owls is called a parliament.
That makes sense. A parliament of owls.
Yeah. A group of pandas, an embarrassment.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit much in here.
Do you know what a group of snails is?
Oh, gosh.
A cornucopia.
A cornucopia of snails.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And gorillas can get colds.
Oh.
Yeah, they can get colds and other like human-like diseases.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bless them.
There you go.
I'm quite scared of gorillas, you know.
Well, yeah, I should think so.
Yeah.
They and rip you limb from limb.
Monkeys in general.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially mandrills. The mandrill.
What with the nose? With the weird nose thing?
The blue and red.
Yeah.
Stripe. Yeah. Terrified of them.
Oh.
Properly terrified of them.
That surprises me because I thought you'd be like really wanting to cuddle a monkey.
Well, I do, but I'm scared.
Yeah, that was if you heard that noise, that was my chair. Just
no explanation needed. I'm going to cut that out.
Scooting my chair.
Yeah, Sarah has wind issues. Yeah, in fact, I think the only reason, or when I first became aware that I was scared of monkeys, was because of this story about a monkey. And now I've said that, I want to do that as an episode because honestly, it was terrifying.
Say that again. Sorry.
Doing it. I listened to like an episode of a program about like monkeys, and it scared the life out of me. So
I know what you're talking about. Actually, that one where he rips her face off.
It's not that one, but it is.
Oh, okay.
It is similar to that. It is very like when monkeys are just like, I've had enough of this shit.
When monkeys attack.
Yeah.
Should call it.
Should we call it that episode? And I'll do that as my next episode. When monkeys attack. It's gonna be scary.
Well, let's end the random blams.
All right. Done.
Done.
So is this about one? Is this one story, or is it going to be, because it's the perplexing history of animal trials, and I didn't know there was animal trials.
I know. And
Oh,
that's why it's so perplexing, because
so excited.
you know, when we just like, oh, what episode should I do? Because we've always got a back catalogue of episodes that we want to cover, but some
Yeah.
of them are incredibly time consuming and we can't
Yeah.
do
And
them. You know,
also sometimes we just can't get in that
yeah,
headspace. Yeah.
absolutely. And especially the heavy ones, they're very taxing, and
Yeah.
we can't always get into them. So I wanted a light-hearted episode to do that was not quite like the depths of Jack the Ripper and things like that.
Uh-huh.
So just searching the internet, and I come across this animal trials thing, and the more I looked into it, I was like, I literally said to Josie, I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, I had
Oh
no
my
idea.
Oh my goodness. And then I couldn't tell her anything about it because she doesn't want to know the episode. So I had to keep
She
it to
don't want to know.
myself.
She's like,
So
shut your face.
so today's episode is unlike anything that we've both covered before. And it's a very serious topic, but at the same time, and not quite so serious. And it may cause some people anger and distress. And then I've written in brackets, mainly Kate.
Mainly me. I'm gonna
Mainly
try and
Kate.
contain myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna need everyone's help. So
Yeah. So it's a very serious subject matter, obviously, animal cruelty, not funny. However, there may be times during this episode where you might feel that this story is slightly amusing. And I just want you to remember that it's a very serious matter and shouldn't be treated lightly, despite sometimes it being hilarious.
if there is the thing is, we try and bring some sort of fun. Like that's our characters, it's our personalities. That is who we are. We don't find animal cruelty funny. In fact, it's the worst thing for me. Animal cruelty is absolutely the worst thing for me. But in any of our episodes, of course, we don't actually find any of this funny.
No.
But
Although,
it's our personalities, for God's sake.
Yeah.
We can't help it. I see the humour in everything apart from, you know.
And you will see the humour in this. And I've written here, as podcasters, we always maintain a high level of professionalism.
Absolutely.
We never poke fun at stories or victims, and that shall remain throughout this episode. However, there may be times where there is some fun in the matter that we will try and highlight to the best of our abilities. And but yeah, just putting it out there, we don't think animal cruelty is hilarious at all, but there are some elements to this that are fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I think it is laughing at the ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Certainly not. There is no way on this earth I would ever find any kind of animal cruelty funny.
Yeah.
So
right.
Whatever I'm laughing at is not that.
Yeah. So let's begin, shall we?
All right. Morning.
Oh, look at her face. She does not want to be there.
You don't want to do morning.
She's like, oh goodness. I'm not ready to be on camera.
I've only just got her out of bed and given her breakfast.
Yeah, you can see she is lazy.
You're so tired. Yeah.
We're talking about Kate's pup and not Kate's other half. Let's begin.
Okay.
The year is 1386 in Normandy in France. There's a child killer on the loose.
Oh.
The killer had struck when the child was sleeping in its crib. The parents had been busy working on their farm and left their little one's side only briefly. The killer crept up to the child's crib and defaced it, leaving the child to die from its injuries. Once the killer was done attacking, they ran. A search began, and when the killer was eventually apprehended, covered in the child's blood, they were held in front of a jury, tried and convicted of the crime, and sentenced to be hanged. When the time for the hanging came, the killer was dressed up in a waistcoat and white shirt, marched to the gallows, and in front of some of its peers was hanged. The town gathered to watch this charade. They hurled rotten food at the killer and shouted insults. "Murderer! Child killer! You swine!" Because you see, this child killer had been a pig.
What?
Let me introduce you to the time of animal trials. A time that doesn't seem too far behind us. All over Europe between the 1400s and 1700s, trials were being conducted to hold animals accountable for their actions. What kind of animals? I hear you ask.
What kind of animals?
Anything that wasn't human, that had broken the law or caused a disturbance of some kind, was held accountable. From domesticated animals such as pigs, donkeys, cows, goats, horses, dogs, to the smallest of the small, locusts, rats, snails. Don't laugh, Kate.
You serious? Locusts on trial.
Rats, snails, weevils, termites, and even worms. Nothing went unpunished. I said at the beginning, this is a very serious episode.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. get back to your worms on trial. Yeah.
Okay. These domesticated animals, animals under the control of humans, were treated as part of the household and generally held in secular courts, which I googled because I didn't know what it was, and everywhere that I looked, people just assumed that you know what a secular court is. And I was listening to podcasts and they just talk about secular courts, and I was like, I don't know what that is. For anybody also that doesn't know what a secular court is, it's a court that is not religious. It's a court that doesn't hold people accountable but through God, and it's typically a court that a human would be tried in. So these domesticated animals were often tried in these courts, and they were often for offences such as maiming, killing, and thievery. And the outcome of these trials would normally end in a conviction and a death sentence of hanging or burning. The trials were taken very seriously. If an animal was accused, they would be given a summons and to appear in court, and then brought to court where they would literally stand trial. They would be given a defense attorney that would do his utmost to present a proper defensive case for his animal counterpart. And most of the time, human witness testimonies and evidence would be provided by the prosecution, and this would be strong enough that the animal would normally be convicted of its crime. The judge, lawyer, counsellors, and hangmen took the case as seriously as they would any other murder. In at least some cases, the owner of the animal that was being criminally charged could be a co-defendant or complicit in the crime. For example, the owner of a domesticated animal found to be responsible for the murder could be hanged if he admitted to having prior knowledge of the animal's vice, like eating children's faces. Mm-hmm. If he swore that he was unaware of the animal's vice, he owed to the court something that was called the relief of a dead man, which means that they would have to pay a fine for the death of the person. Right. And then the animal would be convicted of the crime. Any animal that fell outside of the domesticated bracket, such as bugs, beetles, and rats, would be tried in ecclesiastical courts, which is the opposite of a secular court. So this is a church court that generally asks for the banishment and excommunication of its tried subjects. The reason that these are held in different courts, I hope you're not giggling, Kate.
No. Okay. Absolutely not. Take this very seriously.
The reason that these are held in a different court is because it was deemed that rodents and insects were not the subject of human control and
Oh, no.
could not be seized and imprisoned by the civil authorities.
Oh.
So these would, the majority of the time, be for crimes against crops. So vermin eating a farm supply of barley, or, you know, something to that horror. For vermin trials, the procedure was often as follows. A town or district that found itself plagued by animals would launch an investigation. An advocate would be named to defend the pests should grounds for bringing them to trial be found sufficient. A summons would then be served by a court official who would read it in a loud and solemn voice, in brackets, or not brackets, in quotes, at such places as the animals frequented. The animals would then have 3 opportunities to appear in court and plead their case. If they lost, which they usually did, they would be asked to leave the district within a certain period of time. The judge would give the vermin enough grace to get their things in order before the banishment. In some instances, the judge showed leniency and would allow for extra time in such cases as a pregnant rodent. Inability to show up for sentencing and adhere to its resolution resulted in an unlikely punishment. Excommunication.
Oh.
So I didn't know what the difference was between excommunication and banishment. And banishment is obviously they're banished from the area. Excommunication is the action of officially excluding someone from participation in the sacraments and services of the Christian church. So the worms would no longer be allowed.
Right. So the worms would turn up on a Sunday morning for church.
And they would not be allowed in.
They would not be allowed entry.
Absolutely not, no. But they lost that right when they dug up the farmer's carrots.
When they ate someone's apple.
Yep. So, why did people feel the need to put animals on trial? And this is something that's been debated since the 13th century. Scholars have theorized that these trials were just a glorified fundraising exercise. But in reality, these trials and executions actually cost money.
Yeah.
So they didn't get any fundraising from it. So then it was thought that perhaps putting animals on trials was a deterrent, because oftentimes animals of the same were brought to the trial. Say, like the pig, for instance, was being hanged. The pigs of the area were brought it. Hey, come on, man.
Local pigs would I know what you're going to say. Taken in and go, see what's going to happen.
Yep.
And you carry on down this road,
this is what's going to lead.
Going to happen.
It was thought to be a deterrent from a life of crime. If you see Willie up there hanging, that's going to be you next. If you consider eating that child's face, that's going to be you up there.
Yeah.
However, most of the time, these animals were trialed in absentia. Oh, God, I can never know how to say that word. Absentia or absentia.
Absentia? I don't know.
Basically, they were tried without being present because they didn't adhere to their court summons.
Like absent. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So they wouldn't be there to defend themselves, and they were tried regardless. So, basically, there would be no point bringing the other pigs to see the absent pig being tried. So they thought maybe perhaps it wasn't being done as a deterrent, because most of the time the animal was tried in absentia and there was no point. So in more recent times, it has been theorized that these trials were just a way for man to assert dominance over an animal that has thought to defy the laws of man. And for any murder that had taken place, it was a way for people to hold something accountable, and get justice and be able to move on. So records throughout history detail these horrific offences and then the trials that ensued. The earliest record of trials being held for things other than human comes from the time of the great Greek philosopher Plato in the years 400 BC. And he stated, this is a quote directly from Plato's mouth, "And if any lifeless thing deprive a man of life, except in the case of a thunderbolt or other fatal dart sent from the gods, whether a man is killed by lifeless objects falling upon him or his falling upon them, the nearest of kin shall appoint the nearest neighbour to be a judge, and therefore acquit himself and the whole family of guilt, and he shall cast forth the guilty thing beyond the border." For instance, a stone falling on a man was held accountable, given a trial, and sentenced to exile. A wayward javelin being thrown accidentally, ending in the killing of a boy, was sentenced to exile. A man falling on an axe and being killed would also have been punished with exile. The earliest recorded pig trial took place in a place in France that I'm not even going to pretend to try and pronounce, just outside of Paris in 1266. And by the early 15th century, it had become an established practice throughout Normandy and quite a lot of France. And now it was thought that France was the most popular region for this to happen. But I think that it happened everywhere. So it's Burgundy, Lorraine, Picardy, Champagne, and then Italy, Germany, and all over the countries. But there's a lot of records that have survived in France, which makes it seem like France was the ones that did this the most.
Okay.
There are at least 191 documented offences and trials. So let's go through some of them.
Okay. Can I ask a question about that pig at the beginning?
Yes.
Why did he have to have a shirt and a waistcoat on?
I'm going to go through that
Okay.
in a minute. On January 10th, 1457, a Sow was convicted of a murder flagrantly committed on the person of Jehan Martin, aged 5 years, the son of Jehan Bailey of Savigny. The pig and its piglets were hauled off to jail, where they waited 1 month before their trial date. According to the court records, there were 3 lawyers present, 2 for the prosecution and 1 for the pig's defence. 9 witnesses were also called by name, in addition to several others whose identities have been lost in the records. And based on their testimony, the judge decided that while Jehan Bailey, the owner of the pig, should have kept a much more careful eye on his animals, responsibility for the boy's murder lay squarely with the pigs. Witnesses, however, couldn't ascertain whether the piglets had had a hand in the boy's murder, despite them being stained with the boy's blood. Witnesses said that the pig's pen was too high to see if the piglets were involved, and the judge ruled that the Sow, the mother, Sow, had clearly been the ringleader.
Oh,
the piglets were just a rendering of bad mothering by the Sow and should not be held accountable. The pig, who could offer no defence on account of it being a pig, was sentenced to be hanged by the hind feet to a gallows tree, and the piglets were let off with the promise of good behaviour. The records, this is all from the records, all right? Listen, I ain't made this shit up. Quote, "In lack of any positive proof that they had assisted in mangling the deceased, they were restored to their owner on condition that he should give bail for their appearance, should further evidence be forthcoming to prove their complicity in their mother's crime." So the piglets were let go to the owner with a court caution to say if they step a toe out of line again,
step a trotter over the line there. That's it.
So the owner, Jehan Bailey, wasn't thrilled with this task. Weeks later, he actually brought the 6 piglets back to the court and said that he just couldn't be held accountable for their future conduct. He was like, they've had some bad parenting over the year. I just can't.
They're going off the rails.
No, I see it happen. It's in their eyes. It says, in other words, he refused to take responsibility for any potential murders they might commit. The potentially evil swine were declared as vacant property and forfeited to a noblewoman who lived in the same region. Nearly 40 years later, on June 14th, 1494, another pig was arrested for having strangled and defaced a young child in its cradle. And this is what I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the episode. Witnesses claimed that at the time of the murder, the child's father was busy guarding his cattle and the mother was in the village. A quote from the court record says, "The infant, being left alone in its cradle, the said pig entered during the said time the said house and disfigured and ate the face and neck of the said child, which, in consequence of the bites and defacements inflicted by the said pig, departed this life." The judge's sentence was as follows. "We, in detestation and horror of the said crime, and to the end that an example may be made and justice maintained, have said, judged, sentenced, pronounced, and appointed that the said porker, now detained as a prisoner and confined in the said abbey, shall be by the master of high works hanged and strangled on a gibbet of wood near the adjoining of the gallows." The pig was then dressed in a waistcoat, shirt, and breeches and hanged in front of the neighbourhood pigs in hopes this would deter them from committing the same offence. Now, the reason that it was dressed up was just to humanise it, that's all. Just for people to hold it accountable, I guess. They thought of these animals as part of the family.
Community.
So, so it was basically like a human trial, but with a porker.
Yeah.
And that is where the saying comes from when people say "you swine."
Yeah.
Because these pigs were this was the insult that was held at these pigs. In one case in 1519 in Stelvio, a village in the Alps, a judge banished an entire community of moles, but guaranteed them safe conduct, so protection from cats and dogs, on their way out of town, and allowed newborn moles and pregnant members of the mole community more time to vacate. In 1474, a rooster was put on trial in the city of Basel for, quote, "the heinous and unnatural crime of laying an egg, which the townspeople feared was spawned by Satan and contained a cockatrice," which is like a winged reptile type thing. The rooster was burnt along with its egg in front of a large crowd in a place called Kohlenberger. And another trial like this took place in Switzerland in 1730. In 1478 in Switzerland, seed beetles were prosecuted for wreaking havoc on crops. After much public reprimanding of the insects and head scratching from local dignitaries, the bishop of the area issued a cease and desist order to the bugs, which they ignored.
What?
I know.
Such rebels.
I know. The bishop then ordered the it says antagonistic arthropods to leave the land within 6 days, proclaiming that these creatures were not passengers on Noah's Ark and so were open to excommunication. If they refused to leave, they were ordered to appear in court to explain their refusal to budge. The records do not mention whether they turned up in court, but the following year they were back, and the church blamed the pest's continuing presence on the sins of the people. So they didn't adhere to the banishment, and they just went, fuck everybody.
So did they have to get like 5 million tiny little waistcoats ready?
Yeah. So because these seed beetles didn't adhere to anything that the court was saying, they basically said, well, it's everybody else's fault that they're not adhering because you're all sinners.
Yeah.
And they've
learned from you.
Yeah, they would then kind of get them to pray away the sins.
Right.
An early 18th century German Chronicle relates an incident of a drummer's dog in an Austrian town biting a councillor's leg. The dog was then handed over to the judicial authorities, who sentenced the dog to a year locked inside the public, I'm not going to pronounce this, Narrenkotelin, which is a small iron cage in the town's main square that served to let the townsfolk ridicule local criminals and blasphemers.
Like the stocks.
But like a cage. I think you see them in like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, where they're just swinging in the cages. Yes, the doggy was put in the cage. In May 1499, a bull was sentenced to death for furiously killing Lucas Dupont, a young man of 14 or 15 years of age. There's another incident of a dog, but it doesn't say the year, and it says that the dog was condemned to the galleys for stealing a capon. The defendant brought in the dog's puppies in an attempt to appeal to the compassion of the courts.
Oh.
The results are unknown. So the defense literally, they did their best to try and get these animals off. And there are records of animal trials that didn't end in the execution or exile of the animal. So these defense lawyers sometimes did win a case.
Good.
And because their reputation was on the line, these cases were taken just as seriously as the human ones. So if they were forever losing these trials, then their reputation would be rubbish. So I have some instances of some winning cases. One of them is my absolute favourite thing I've ever heard, and I'll get to that one in a minute. Yes. In 1713, a Franciscan monastery in Brazil was plagued with swarms of termites, helping themselves to the friars' food and devouring the furniture and making a good start of bringing down the entire monastery.
Oh, goodness.
The friars lodged a complaint with the bishop, and the insects were brought before a tribunal. The defense lawyer argued that the termites were God's creatures and therefore entitled to the food. The final verdict of the ruling of this court case was a compromise. The friars were ordered to provide a habitat for the termites, and then the termites were ordered to remain in that habitat. Whether that happened or not, I don't know.
I like the way they say ordered.
Yeah. Yeah, you must remain. That's not the first time that happened either. There's another one like that.
Crazy.
In 1545, weevils, which are a type of bug, ravaged the vineyards of Saint-Julien in France. The weevils were summoned to court, but failed to appear, so they were tried in absentia. The plaintiff and prosecution put forward their case, and rather than issuing a sentence straight away, the court issued a proclamation recommending public prayer to implore pardon of the people's sins, which did work, actually. It says in May, like a couple of years later, the people did put forward this like public prayer that had been recommended, and then the insects were said to have disappeared. 30 years later, however, the court records show that the weevils were back. And they wreaked havoc on that same vineyard. So the case then went to trial. The original defense attorneys of the said weevils had died, so they were appointed new ones. And the weevils' new defense attorney argued that the bugs were created by God before human beings, and therefore they had a right to their plant life. And it was decided by the public that a section of land be separated for use of the weevils, and they were to stay in that area and enjoy that piece of land only. The defense attorney, however, said he could not possibly accept that offer on behalf of his clients, because don't forget they weren't there, so they couldn't.
Oh yeah,
they couldn't say yay or nay. But he said that the soil in that area was not suitable to support the needs of the weevil. The outcome of this trial will never be known, because part of the documentation regarding this trial was eaten by bugs. It was destroyed.
They're stepping up their criminality, aren't they? They're like,
erasing all record.
Get in that office. Get to the left filing cabinet.
Yeah. In 1750, a French peasant named Jacques was accused was accused of sodomizing a donkey, and both were hauled into court. The prosecution asked for the death sentence of both.
What? Why?
Well, character witnesses were actually allowed into court, and they spoke on behalf of the donkey.
Yay.
The local priest gave evidence that he had known the said she-ass for 4 years, that she had always shown herself to be virtuous and well-behaved, that she had never given occasion to scandal anyone, and that therefore he was willing to bear witness that she, in word and deed, and in all of her habits of life, was a most honest creature. The defence put forward that the donkey had been chased by the peasant and was not a willing participant. The peasant was sentenced to death, while the donkey was let off on the ground that she was the victim of violence and had not participated in her master's crime of her own free will.
Yeah. Good.
I love the way that the priest had to like stake his reputation.
Do a testimony. She's always been a virtuous she-ass.
She-ass. This is my favourite one, all right?
Okay.
The most famous case of animal trials comes in the year 1522 in the town of Autun in France. The local community had rallied together to bring complaint of rats having feloniously eaten up and wantonly destroyed the barley crop. The courts... Are you why laughing?
Oh, I'm just smiling. I'm happy. I'm having a nice day.
The court set a date for the trial to be heard and issued a summons to the defendants to appear lest they be tried in absentia. When the appointed day came, you will not be surprised to learn that the rats refused the summons and none appeared before the court.
Refused? They're like, no, mate.
I ain't going. Not even me.
What are you going to do? Come off me.
It was the weevils. Given that the guilt of the defendants was unanimously assumed, the court began to get together for sentencing. However, the prosecution hadn't bargained for the legal representation the rats had received by the name of Bartholomew Chassenay. Chassenay is a lad. So Chassenay, he presented a motion, okay? He said that the rats of the province were widely dispersed, and they resided in villages that dotted the countryside from the Maurienne to the Saône. No single announcement could have reached all of these locations, nor had sufficient time transpired to permit such a diverse population of rodents to make the journey to Autun, where the court was being held. To try the rats in absentia without posting adequate notice was not only unfair, but it was in clear violation of both customary precedent and Roman law. For the trial to proceed, Chassenay ventured that the court would need to make a more robust effort to advertise the trial. So the court agreed. And so for many weeks, the details of the charges and the rats they were because it weren't just a couple of rats, like a whole community of rats that they were getting together. So this announcement was now being made at every church in Bishopric. And so basically, instead of the town crier just going to one place and being like, hear ye, all the rats of the village, you are hereby summoned to come to court on this date. They were having to do it for weeks on end and at different locations around the area.
Make sure they notified every rat.
Yeah, to be able to notify all of the rats, otherwise that wasn't fair.
Yeah, it's not fair, yeah.
So the date of the rescheduled trial approached, and once again, the rats did not appear. But before the court could again try the rats in absentia, Chassenay raised another objection. He said, if a court summons requires a defendant to make a dangerous journey, or to traverse a hostile territory or the holdings of an enemy, for instance, the defendant could refuse the summons until such time as the court provided them with safe passage, usually in the form of an armed escort.
Oh, yes.
Chassenay noted that the rats had foes and enemies in every village of the province, mortal enemies who waited vigilantly to pounce. Cats. He said, If the court expected the rats to make the journey all the way here, then the rats needed to be guaranteed protection from the cats. They weren't coming to trial because they were so in fear of their life.
Yeah, enemies everywhere.
Yeah, they just couldn't make it there because of all the cats in the village. And the courts couldn't possibly ask the owners of the village to lock up their cats. So in the end, the case was dropped and Chassadet saved the rats from exile.
Yes.
And he used a similar argument in defense against woodworms in a similar area. Which is hilarious.
That's my favourite one.
I know, it's my favourite one as well.
I would have liked to have seen the armed guard, though.
Yeah.
Going along,
all these
collecting
rats.
up a couple of rats, and the rats being like, yes, thank you.
Yep.
Getting in, having the door shut behind them.
Safely made it.
Yeah.
So these unlikely wins propelled his career, making him one of the most sought-after defense attorneys of the time.
Nice.
He then became like a judge or something equivalent. You know, when people appeal to the high courts.
Yeah.
He was like one of those.
Nice.
But if you think these sort of animal trials are for medieval times only, think again.
Oh.
As recently as 2004, Katia, who was a bear, had mauled two campers. One was a boy who was injured when he came close to her cage, and the other was an intoxicated man who was mauled after attempting to shake her paw.
Her cage?
Yeah.
So she was a captive bear?
Yeah, this was in Russia, I believe.
Jeez.
A Kazakh. So Kazakh authorities removed Katia from the campground, but could not find a zoo or sanctuary to take her. So they put her in prison. She was sentenced to life imprisonment in Kostanay, where she wallowed in a cell amongst human inmates, surviving on food scraps from the prison's kitchen. Eventually, Katia's unusual situation brought national attention, and animal welfare organisations petitioned for her release. So after spending 15 years of her life in a jail cell, Katia was released on June 5th, 2019.
Jeez.
And relocated to a nearby zoo.
Which essentially is another prison.
Yeah, essentially. But she's probably getting fed.
Proper food.
But it would seem that times have changed and somewhat for the flip reverse. Because in 2018, a monkey sued a man and won. And you may or may not remember the monkey selfie scandal of 2011. No? Let me tell you.
Sorry.
In 2011, British wildlife photographer David Slater travelled to Indonesia to snap some photos of the black-faced macaques. However, what happened was 6-year-old Naruto, who was a black-faced macaque, a very smiley-faced black-faced macaque, took advantage of the camera setup and snapped some selfies of her own. She took some pictures, and if you've not seen the photos, you're going to have to look them up.
Oh.
Yeah. If you've not seen them, you
I have
you
now.
Just looked it up? They're hilarious, aren't they?
So funny. And it's smiling and everything.
Really smiling, really toothy smile.
Yeah.
So these photos were obviously, when he found them, they were like gold dust. But they somehow got leaked and they were published in papers. And David Slater actually took these publishers to court for copyright. However, it came about that these photos didn't actually belong to David because he hadn't taken the photos. They were actually free for anyone to use. Insert Peter. Peter got wind of this and decided that the copyright to these photos belonged to the one and only thing that had actually taken the photo, and that was Naruto herself. They felt Naruto had taken these images and hadn't given her consent for them to be shared so publicly to everyone. So they took Slater to court for copyright.
Wow.
And it's only like a few years ago, been settled, like 2018, 2019, did it get settled? And the court deemed that copyright couldn't belong to an animal, but they did deem that he would have to pay 25% of any profits made to like a conservation charity of the area.
So funny.
Yeah. And that's the perplexing history of animal trials.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I had absolutely like no prior knowledge to that. I had no
Me
idea
either.
that there was ever like a court where
Nope.
an animal would be like
Summoned.
on trial. Yes,
Yeah.
summons rats and weevils, and I mean it's crazy, isn't it? We do like to humanize our animals, and I'm guilty of it as well. I mean, Pup
So
has a coat when it's cold, and to be honest, she's an animal. She doesn't. Does she really need it? I mean, she does get cold.
yeah. So
But
the reason that I found that it kind of faded out is because these defense attorneys were bringing in all these rights for the animal, like the rights of safe passage and the rights of all of these things. And they
yeah,
was like, well, where do we draw the line then? If we're going to try them as essentially humans, they
yeah,
need to have the same legal rights as
as
as a
humans,
human. So
yeah,
where do we draw the line? So that's why it kind of got abolished or like faded out, I guess.
yeah. God, it's crazy, isn't it? What
Because
humans
then there was
do.
like, well, animals shouldn't be kept outside. That's a form of slavery. They shouldn't be put to work, and animals shouldn't
Yeah,
be. They should, have this exactly the same rights as us if we're going to try them
yeah,
the way that we are trying them.
yeah.
So,
That's true. I mean, if like if Claire says to one of the kids or something, like, come on, move out the way, like she's doing dinner, we'll all sort of go, oi, just say excuse me like that. And Claire's like, oh, sorry, excuse me, please.
yeah,
But then if she does that same thing to like the cats or puppy, we all say the
yeah,
same thing. We're like,
yeah.
so don't speak
Don't
to her like
barge them
that.
out of the
Yeah,
way.
don't push her
I
out the
know.
way. Just say, excuse me, please. Claire's like, for God's sake.
I know. I hate when people shout at Caesar.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's enough. Sometimes I have to shout at him because he's an knobhead sometimes, but I hate it. I'm like,
yeah,
oh.
yeah. I mean, I've had moments where people haven't respected pup. I've
And
had
you've almost flown off the handle.
No, I have flown off the
Yeah,
handle. Yeah,
yeah, I've heard
properly.
one of them.
Yeah, with that kid with the bangers.
Yeah, yeah.
I know the kids still reminisce about that. They're like, "Do you remember when you grabbed hold of that child?" And I'm like, "Shh, oh, shush."
Do you remember when you threatened that 6-year-old?
When you grabbed hold of that kid, and I was like, "Yes, yes,
Fondly.
oh yes, I do, and I regret nothing."
Great memories.
No, no. If I was present and I saw someone mistreating an animal in any way, I am going to have something to say about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%.
You'd have been a great defense attorney for these animals.
I'd like to think that I would. The passion would be there, but the professionalism,
No.
no, I would have been too aggressive. I think I'd have lost the plot. I'd have been on trial next. But yeah, we're following with a lot of animal themed episodes, haven't we? Because
Yeah.
we had Mary Toft and her baby
Oh, we did.
bunnies.
Yep,
Now we've got Criminal Pigs,
we do.
which is definitely the best title episode ever. Criminal Pigs. Dun dun dun.
Pigs.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It should be like some sort of 80s FBI show, shouldn't it? Criminal Pigs.
Yeah.
This week on Criminal Pigs.
Absolutely. But before we end the episode, we have got a shout out that I would like to give out.
Oh yeah, I was looking forward to these.
So I've got to give a shout out to Erica for being a new subscriber.
Erica!
Erica! Thank you very much for subscribing, and we hope you enjoy all of the amazing. We've got some really amazing blams, actually, haven't we? We've got some really, really good blams. So if you do want to listen to them, be like Erica, subscribe.
Yeah.
And
Do it. Also, it's quite a lot late, but I had a realization the other day that I never gave a shout out to Tess, who has been a subscriber for a long time. She is my sister and I love her dearly. But I did think the other day, did we ever give her a shout out? Because I don't think we did. So,
shout out now.
Shout out.
Thank you, Tess.
Thanks, Tess. We appreciate you. I love you.
But if you do want to subscribe, the link is just in the episode description and it just says support our show. And that's exactly what you will be doing, supporting our little show.
Yeah. And like we say most episodes, if you've got any stories that we haven't done that you are really desperate to hear about, we might not know about it. So bring it to us.
Absolutely. We don't know all the stories.
No,
We don't know them.
no, don't know 'em.
Yeah.
So if we don't know, we can't do it. But yeah, if you think of any episodes, any stories that you want us to cover, let us know and we will absolutely do it.
Yep.
And if you have any problems getting to the Blam episodes, Sarah knows how to do it.
Yeah. Just send
Oh,
us a message.
yeah, just send us a message and say it's still locking me out because there is a process. But yeah, thanks,
All right.
Erica. Thanks, Tess. Thanks, all of the rest of you. And we'll catch you on the next one.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye. If you have enjoyed listening to our episodes, make sure you rate us and leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening.
We absolutely love hearing from you guys. So you can also help support our show by donating to our Buy Me a Coffee link. We will make sure that you get a massive shout out and a big thank you in our next week's episode.
You can also follow us on social media at Perplexed Podcasts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to see more videos and blooper reels, subscribe to our TikTok and YouTube channels.
You can also email us your stories at perplexedpodcasts@gmail.com.
And you can find all the relevant links in the episode descriptions. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
There's an intruder in your house and she's barking to try and get your attention, and you're going, shut up!
She's like, Mum, they're loading the telly into a van.
I'm trying to stop them.
She is.
Here she is.
Hey, can you sit with me for this episode,
They're
please?
trying to take my other leg, Mum.